Competition Commission has launched an investigation into Johnson & Johnson for its pricing of the TB drug Bedaquline to South Africa. The investigation will also look into the company's exclusionary conduct with regards to the evergreening of its patent for the drug. Doctors Without Borders in Southern Africa have hailed South Africa's Competition Commission for its move, saying that TB drugs and tests must be fairly available to everyone who needs them. For more on this, I'm now joined by Candice Sehoma, who is the Advocacy Advisor for Doctors Without Borders in Southern Africa. Candice, appreciate your time this afternoon. Give us some insight or an overview of the current situation regarding access to Bedaquline for TB patients in high-burden countries.
Yes, so thanks for having me. So we actually have been advocating for access to Bedaquline, which is a DR-TB drug, an effective DR-TB drug that is a short-term regimen where previously TB patients were subjected to very toxic medication. So this came, as a relief for many patients that they could use less, toxic medication and more effective medication. However, the challenge that we are facing today is that there is high pricing of the drug by Johnson & Johnson, and we have been advocating as civil society for this drug to be available at a much more affordable price. So currently, South Africa is procuring the medication for about 5,550 versus the rest of the world, where they're receiving it for half that price. So what we
as we'll take you now to the procession as we have live visuals coming to you from Kwapindangene, where the procession is traveling to the mortuary. Right, in a moment we will be able to see that procession as it makes its way to the mortuary to collect the remains of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. We will be coming back to that in a moment. In the meantime, we continue with that conversation. Now, Candice, appreciate you speaking to us again. Now, let's move on to the significance of the Competition Commission's investigation into Johnson & Johnson, obviously for this excessive pricing on Bedaquline and exclusionary conduct.
Yes, I think it's a very important moment where the Competition Commission has launched an investigation into Johnson & Johnson for both, the exploitative price charged for Bedaquline in South Africa, but also for patent exclusionary conduct. So currently the patent for Bedaquline is, or rather Johnson & Johnson has patented Bedaquline until 2027. Meaning that there won't be any generic or cheaper medication that could supply the South African government. And this is due to a practice that is usually used by pharmaceuticals to ring-fence them, and so that they can, charge as high as they please for this particular drug. So the Competition Commission will be investigating them for both the excessive pricing, but also the patent evergreening that we see, which is actually a first for the Competition Commission, as far as we know, that they will be looking into these exclusionary patents that we see from pharmaceuticals.
Candice, I'd like you to talk to us about what evergreening actually means. But before we even get there, let's talk about these pharmaceutical companies that are obviously in the business of making money. Yes, they save lives, but they're in the business to make profits. Now, the issue that arises in this instance is one around probably the morals and ethics, if you will. Mm-hmm. Where do you draw the line? What is a toss-up? I mean, it's almost like a seesaw sort of situation where you go into business to manufacture drugs for the purpose of, one, saving lives, but also to make profits. But there's an expectation that you will give away your intellectual property at some point.
Yes, and I think it's quite an important question, because I think one thing to highlight in all of this, I think even for Johnson & Johnson in their development of Bedaquline, it wasn't just Johnson & Johnson who put financial resources towards the development. a lot of U.S. taxpayer money was used. There was a lot of public funding that went into the development of Bedaquline. But also even in South Africa, we did a lot of clinical trials that even the evidence that was generated in South Africa actually even assisted the WHO in order for them to recommend it as a standard treatment for DRTB. So it was a collective effort. It wasn't just Johnson & Johnson that put in, the investment. I think it's very important, obviously, recognizing that they need to make those profit, but there is a margin, and we have run studies that, even when, it showed studies that the cost in which it actually the cost in which to develop these drugs, you could still make, quite marginal profits out of it, even if you reduce it to half the price, So I think it's very important to acknowledge that it wasn't just, Johnson & Johnson's investment, but also there is a lot of public investment and taxpayer money that goes into the development of these drugs, and therefore there should be some benefit sharing. There should, be some benefit for even us as contributors, and as I've stated, that South Africa has also contributed quite immensely in the proving the efficacy of the drug in itself. So therefore, I think there should be some fair share, there should be some benefit sharing to ensure that we are able to access the drug at an affordable price.
Candice Sehoma, Advocacy Advisor for Doctors Without Borders in Southern Africa. Appreciate your time this afternoon.